Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Welcome to episode number 79 of the Batman on Film Social Hour podcast. I don't know if you want to call this an emergency podcast, but it kind of is because a big event went down that we need to talk about. I got two guests. I am Jett, Ramey. I am the founder of Batman on Film. Javi, have I ever told you the story of how I founded founded Batman on Film on Web TV in 1998? Have I ever told that story before? Not sure if I ever mentioned that on any Batman on Film podcast.
Not to me personally, but I've heard rumors and legends of this mythical web TV, and I think you probably had to be there.
So I have told that story before on a podcast. I'm getting old. My memory's not what it used to be.
Maybe once.
And in addition to how, now if you're listening, this is his story. His is history right here, folks. Also on our podcast, I have a very special guest, a legacy OG BOF contributor. In fact, the very first Batman on Film contributor, and that would be Mr. Paul J. Wares. Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thanks, Bill. This is quite exciting. First time doing this, so
yes,
yeah, it's been one of those things that I know you and I have spoken about several times, being part of one of these podcasts. So it's great to finally be able to do it. The circumstances are somewhat testy, but otherwise, yeah, it's great to be here.
All right, so we're going to get cut right to the chase. Warner Brothers Discovery had a big investors meeting yesterday where you could, if you were an investor, you were able to attend virtually. Was it all virtual? Did they do anything like an audience? I don't know. I have
No, it was all completely virtual. So there were voices of various people that were giving the presentations, and then there were slides to go.
And of course, I'm sure that there were people, the big hitters could ask questions.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Peons like me, if I was able to attend, could not. So
correct.
With my 3 shares of Warner Brothers Discovery or whatever it is. So Paul actually attended.
I did.
And so Paul, just tell it, go. I just, whatever.
Yeah. I've tried through all of this to keep fans updated somewhat as to what the state of are. Now, there are a lot of generalities, not a lot of specifics, because this was a presentation given to investors to keep those investors up to date in what was going down and how their money was being protected, etc. So we're not talking official announcements yet. So
yes,
a lot you would have had to have read between the lines. Some of it was very overt. I can say that there was made no secret that they are great fans of the Batman and what Reeves did with that. They consider the Batman and Elvis the success stories of this year, and in that formula that they're going to adopt going forward in terms of theatrical distribution. As far as they're concerned, theatrical is king. It's never going to be a release ever again.
Yeah.
It will be theatrical, then a window for video on demand, then purchase, etc., etc. So that is set in stone. So
I'll say that I don't disagree with. I want DC films to be on the big screen, personally.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I don't have any issue with that decision. Now I have mixed feelings about the whole Batgirl debacle or whatever, however you want to look at it. But yeah, I am on board with.
I have to say,
big screen stuff.
David Zaslav yesterday, I went into it thinking this guy's the devil. After doing what he did with Batgirl, I think it's an appalling way to treat filmmakers, and your talent don't do it. But what he said from a business point of view was absolutely on the money. And I found myself looking along and agreeing to an awful lot of what he had to say regarding that. This is the most brutal year. Everything after this year will start to calm down. And I've got to say, unfortunately, it's entirely a business decision for Batgirl. And it's a case of wrong place, wrong time, wrong project. It's just awful casualty of the way that they're planning on moving forward with everything. And that is, if you're a DC project, you're going on the big screen and you've got to live up to that being on the big screen. Something that Zaslav mentioned time and again was quality over quantity. We want quality. Every movie that we put out is going to be the best that we can, and then we're going to get behind it absolutely fully. And he said that we actually brought up Black Adam, Shazam, and then thankfully brought up The Flash. And he said that he's seen all three of those movies. They are fantastic. That were his words. And he still believes that they can make them even better. So that's the plan moving forward. And the word reset was mentioned many times. So I think as fans, we've got a lot to be optimistic about. I mean, the proof of the pudding is always in the tasting. So we're going to have to wait and see, obviously. But it does seem as if they have a plan. In fact, they have a 10-year plan, which compared to the plan that Alan Horn and Bob Iger came up with Kevin Feige for Disney Plus and Disney Marvel. So the fact that Alan Horn is now a regular at the Warner Brothers lot suggests to me that that was probably the reason, was to come up and thresh out this deal. They believe that the brand DC Films is probably one of their biggest brands. So they don't want to just exploit it. They want to protect it. And the big three were mentioned several times. Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. So I think if I were to read between the lines, I think everything's going, with a couple of exceptions. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Wonder Woman 3 is knocked on the head. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Aquaman 2 is knocked on the head. And I wouldn't be surprised if The Flash is the last time we see Ezra Miller as The Flash. And I think it's a kind of a scorched earth policy. Let's just get rid of everything and start over with this plan. And if there are other films in development that can work with this plan, great. If there aren't, bye-bye. And I think that was the case with Batgirl. They were faced with a financial situation in which they could write off that as bad debt left over from AT&T, or they could put more money in it. The problem was it didn't reach the standard of what they wanted for theatrical. HBO Max is on its way out.
Yeah, they're already announced they're rolling it into, or they have merged it with Discovery Plus. But
it seemed to think that it's going to have a brand new name. It's not going to be Discovery Plus. It's not going to be HBO Max. They're thinking it's going to be a brand new name, and both of those streaming services will fold into one. Basically, Zaslav's take on this is, where's the justification for spending 70 to 90 million on a film that they can't get a direct profit from? So yes, you might be able to put it on a streaming service, but how is that going to make back the money and the investment that you've said? And according to all their analysis that they've done over the last year, it couldn't. The way
Greg Killar looked at it, where he was all in on HBO Max, was that things like Batgirl, and quite frankly, it's the reason why Zack Snyder Justice League even came to be, is that they wanted content for HBO Max, and they viewed it as nothing more than it's advertisement. It's like spending for advertisement to help build up HBO Max.
Absolutely.
And this is
that was an emergency situation with the pandemic. Everyone needed content and no one could film. So to have something that was pretty much, near the finish line, I mean, that I get that decision. That's a no-brainer. I don't understand it in the long run. And it's something I've always been kind of mystified about, is how Netflix and Disney Plus spend all this money on making these premium shows, but still keep the subscription rates the same, because at some point you hit saturation. I think Netflix is seeing that now, which is why they're talking about different price points and locking down on accounts, because everyone's got someone who knows and lets them borrow, XYZ streaming platform. At some point you're going to hit everyone. And I don't understand how Netflix can drop all this money on these deals, but still, there's only so many people that can join a year at this point. So I see where they're coming from with Warner Brothers to kind of pare back on some of that and make it more feasible and profitable. Because I don't understand how the model works, but I'm not a businessman.
There's something else that they're planning on doing with this new streaming service is there will be an ad-free platform, and there will be a choice where you can have ads. So the actual streamer will be free, but it will be paid through traditional network TV type format, in which there will be ads. And so that's how they will generate a certain amount of profit from that. So it's kind of a mix and match situation. It's hard to argue with. They seem to actually have a pretty good hold on how they're moving forward.
Okay, let's give our opinion. What's your take on basically what they said, now that they've said it, as opposed to all the just the dust up and the blow ups when we found out that Batgirl had been canceled. Javi, what was your, when you heard Batgirl was canceled? What was your take, and what's your whole take on DC on film with Warner Brothers Discovery, now that you know the details of the investors meeting?
Well, I was certainly disappointed to hear that it was canceled. I've been looking forward to Michael Keaton returning in general, and wanting to see, what the future would look like post Flash, of him, bringing all these heroes together. I think that was a great idea. And now that concept seems threatened with this, as Paul just said, burning scorched earth mentality, because that to me sounds like that's not necessarily going to be on the table anymore. So, and beyond, just all the people who worked on that movie, I know you weren't excited for it, but I was excited to see this different version of Batgirl and how it fit in, and the representation that it brought, hearing different voices from different filmmakers. I wasn't a fan of Bad Boys for Life necessarily from a story perspective, but I thought they showed talent, and I enjoyed what they did with Ms. Marvel. This whole thing now just, there's the social media component and the fanboys component of Glad handling, and I'm just exhausted just even thinking about what that means, and campaigns to bring back Batgirl, even though it's something I still would love to see, and I don't understand exactly the legalities of they have to shelve it now because otherwise they would get in trouble with taxes.
Yeah, they're gonna use it as a write-off, and once they do that, they can never release it.
I mean, it's a shame to not see all those people's work, especially as from a fan perspective. I wanted to see, like, they apparently had some great Michael Keaton Batman action scene. That would have been curious what a 70-year-old Batman on film would look like fighting crime.
Pretty fantastic, I think.
Yeah. So I'm disappointed about all that, but at the same time, I totally get moving on and starting from scratch, because I think taking a step back and looking at it, it's probably what the brand needs, because it's just been so just tainted all around. Public perception has never been what we would have hoped it would have been. Even when Marvel seems to have like missteps, like it's still like a solid brand, even though people may not like this show or this movie. Like, the brand identity is so strong at this point, it seems to weather all that. And as a DC fan, I'd love to see DC have the same treatment and not just be like, well, that's DC, I don't care. And even when it's good, it's still not viewed as like Marvel good, whatever that means.
I mean, I'll make mine quick before I turn it over to Paul here and get his response. I've said it before. I was not like super excited just for the premise of a Batgirl movie. I'm not a Batman sidekick fan, and that's just my personal Batman sensibilities coming into play here. But I was like stoked and fired up to see Michael Keaton and how they were going to use him in the film. And that was like the main reason that I was like totally on board with it. And I'm disappointed in that regard. I feel super bad for Leslie Grace and the directors and everyone who worked on the film, in front of it, the camera, and behind it. I've witnessed Superman Lives. I witnessed Justice League Mortal. I witnessed the first incarnation of Batman versus Superman. Those were all about, especially Mortal and Superman Lives. They were about to film when they got sent in the turnaround. But I've never have seen a film that's basically almost done get the axe. I'm sure it's happened, but not like in the stuff I cover, especially in that superhero cinema or in the world of Batman on film. And that just, it blows my mind. However, I get the business side of it. I get it. And I'd have to have a little respect from where they're coming from. Because a lot of things that it seems that Mr. Zaslav is trying to clean up is not this current regime's fault. It's the fault of during the AT&T days and even going back before that. Yeah, it's a bummer, and I feel bad for all involved with the project. But if you look at just business-wise, I get it, and I can't say otherwise.
Well,
Paul?
even just to
Go ahead,
push
Javi.
back on you really quick on that, Bill. I mean, it's still $90 million plus that they spent, because it was originally like a 70 or 75 million budget that ballooned due to, COVID things happening and affecting the production. But granted, Twitter is a very insular space. It's not reflective of the real world.
Sure.
There's still, a perception that comes out there, and there's still a little bit of that Twitter sphere that bleeds into reality and everyday conversations, because people read that and then they take it to people who maybe don't read it, those perceptions. You would think that it would just behoove them to just bite the bullet and not have the backlash and not have to endure, 10, 20 years of Save the Batgirl, and just put it out there on HBO Max and say, this isn't what we're doing going forward. This is just a side tangent thing, have a fake title card that says Earth, 2020, and just leave it at that in its own little bubble.
Two things I'll say that, and I'm going to give Paul a chance to respond and get his take. I would say that, yes, Twitter isn't the real world. And I would say that probably 90% of the general audience has no idea that there was going to be a Batgirl film, or they had no idea that it was canceled either. So I don't think that this outrage, what's the plan, Warner Brothers, exists upon amongst the general audience who make the mainstream, if you will, who make up most by far of the audience who will see these films. As far as putting it on HBO Max, they were still going to have to pay. They're going to have to pump millions and millions into it to mark. They still going to have to market it. So I think it's got to the point where it was, look, if it was up to me, I would be released. I'm not making the decisions though, but it was like, we're not going to put any more money into this project. As Paul said, as they said in the meeting, if they didn't feel it was up to their standards now, we're not going to put any more money. And if we can write off and get, I don't know how much they're going to recoup, a third, half, whatever, through taxes, that's still, they're saving money. That's my take. Paul, what's your thoughts, sir?
This is the age-old problem when business meets show. There's the artistic side of it, and my artistic side is appalled by what's happened to the stars and the directors. More so because the mainstream media over here, and of course this was actually a talking point on the news and in the newspapers, because Batgirl was shot in Glasgow. The narrative is it's the worst film ever made, and it's so bad that it couldn't be released. So therefore, we're never going to release it. That is the narrative that is spun out. And that's a terrible thing for two incredible young directors to have to take upon their shoulders. This movie, you're all saying that my movie sucks, but I can't show it to you to prove that it doesn't. So there's that element. And I imagine they are very, very angry. I was extremely angry when I first heard the news. I'm always going to be on the side of the artist. I'm always going to be on the side of the director. I was very happy to promote the release the Snyder Cut when all of that was going on. I am behind any director that never gets to show off his or her vision. I think that you hire them for a job as a studio, and you know what you're getting going in because you've had lots of meetings, storyboards, etc. You don't pull the rug from under their feet. You let them finish the job. And I think that's the way it should always be. But from the business point of view, this was brutal, but they felt it had to be done. And I think it's heartbreaking. I can understand where they're coming from. I understand why they've done it. I hope at some point in the future, there is a way of being able to show this off. Because I was really, really looking forward to it. I think Leslie Grace is an incredible young actor. I think the directors are going to be some go-to guys in the future. They've already started fielding offers from Marvel again. I think Kevin Feige has actually written them an email, which has been published and put out there, saying how appalled he was when he heard the news, and giving them his full support. So it's not the way that you deal with your talent. I think what this does mean is that Michael Keaton is one and done. as far as his
Yes.
comeback as Batman goes. He was going to be in Aquaman 2. He's not anymore because Aquaman 2 is coming out before The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
The Flash looks like it's definitely going to have a release, which is great. And now that Batgirl isn't, and it looks like everything beyond The Flash is up for question, it means that that original plan of Michael Keaton being the Nick Fury, etc., is gone. Now, there's part of me that's very, very disappointed about that. But I'm also a huge Michael Keaton Batman fan, as you well know, Bill.
Is that right? I never heard that before.
And the idea that somehow this stuff might get tainted and taint his Batman kind of doesn't sit right with me. So I would rather him be in one amazing movie where he gets to come back and do something a bit different with the character, but still be Michael Keaton's Batman, as in The Flash, rather than keep appearing in the odd movie that isn't very good, and starts to slowly devalue his own take on it. What I will say, going back to the 70-year-old kicking ass that was mentioned before, I encourage you to go see the Amazon movie Protege, in which Michael Keaton is about 68 years old, and he's doing his own stunts and fight scenes, and it looks incredible doing them. So the guy is, I mean, if I look and bounce around like that when I'm 70, I will be a very happy man. So I think this is potentially a good thing as far as Batman goes with Michael Keaton, because I think this actually, we know that he has a contract which could be fulfilled by making a Batman Beyond movie. And I think that would actually be a better place to go, because it would have no continuity with whatever is happening. We already got reintroduced to his character via The Flash. So let's make the Batman Beyond movie. I think that would be the way to go. As far as
go ahead.
Batgirl goes, I just hope that someday, some way, we all get to see it, because I still think it had the potential to be special.
It seems like, well, it doesn't seem like, it does seem like, and I've heard that they are still, and I say they, Warner Brothers Discovery, headed by Mr. Zaslav, they're still okay with the movies that aren't connected. I mean, they've just really, we know that Mr. Zaslav is a huge fan of Joker. Joker 2 is coming. They had a big, they got it's going to be, Lady Gaga is in it, and it's its own thing.
Sorry to interrupt. I would be surprised if that was a coincidence that they dropped the Lady Gaga confirmation yesterday amidst everything else.
Oh, it was
before, it was like it was expected to, but when you have them actually promote it in the way they did with that, tweet with her name from her account, like that's the official confirmation. Yes. So I don't think it was any surprise that they put that out when they did to, booster excitement for something when there's so much disappointment in the fan base right now.
Yes, things like that happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would be expecting a Flash trailer as well very soon. For exactly the same reason. I'm surprised that didn't come first, if I'm absolutely honest. Which is another reason I was a bit concerned about the Flash, because my instinct would have been to get a Flash trailer out to distract from all the other news. I have to just coming back to that very quickly. CinemaCon this year, Michael Keaton got the most amount of applause from his appearances in the Flash trailer that they showed. It took the roof off. And as we know, CinemaCon used to be Show West. So the people that are there are the theatre owners, the distributors, etc. And it took the roof off the place. So I think there's there's a great deal of stock in Michael Keaton's Batman. So I was quite surprised when we didn't get a Flash trailer, and I think that's probably, they may be saving that up for a rainy day when something else hits the fan.
Sure. And speaking of CinemaCon, which brings up my second point about things like Joker and Joker 2, you know, under David Zaslav, they took Matt Reeves to Las Vegas to CinemaCon, trotted him on stage to announce to all those theater folks that the Batman 2 is coming. So, and based on that and things I've heard, the Batman 2 is safe. Now, these spinoffs that were going to be on HBO Max, which I was really excited for, especially the Penguin and then the Arkham thing. And I would say there might be a chance they roll them over to HBO proper. And there's something like Watchmen, but I'm not holding my breath. In fact, I think on the last show I predicted that we all said, okay, is the Penguin going to happen? And I went, if I had to say my gut, no, not now. But we know that they want to be in business with Matt Reeves. They want to be in the business with Todd Phillips. They certainly should want to be in the business with James Gunn, especially when you've basically run off Christopher Nolan. They lost him. He's made comments that I thought were kind of about working with Clint Eastwood in the future, not doing any favors and whatnot. And Warner Brothers has long been known as a filmmaker's studio. So, and like you said, Paul, quoting Zaslav, was that they want to make the very best films possible. Well, you know how you do that? You get the very best talent, the very best filmmakers involved. So
what Paul mentioned about, theatrical, preserving the theatrical, and theatrical comes first. I wonder if that's Mr. Zaslav's way of subtly saying to Chris Nolan, I hear you, we're sorry what happened before, please come back. And I wonder if, based on how Oppenheimer does, if there's going to be, what the fallout, no pun intended, is going to be from that movie. And if, Warner Brothers is going to see how he works at another studio and make a more of a concerted effort to bring him back into their fold.
I do not know. Paul may know. I'm not sure. I don't know if Oppenheimer is a one-off with Universal with Chris. I don't know if he signed. So. I don't know if he. No,
I think he tends to do project to project anyway. Yeah. I get the point that was just made about making sure you've got the best talent, and this is a way of signifying, look, we're taking you seriously. We want you back. We want you on board. The trouble is, they've done that off the heels of cancelling a finished film. Now, talent doesn't like. If they get an offer from Warner Brothers now, any talent is going to think, do I really want to work with these guys who, on a whim, as far as they can see it, can the movie and it never be seen? Because ultimately, putting aside the money, every director, every filmmaker, every actor wants their movie to be seen beyond anything else. That's why they do it. They don't do it to sit in a vault somewhere. They do it to be seen. The idea that, they got paid, so it doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters a great deal. That's why they're in the movie making business. So they've set themselves a bit of a problem here. If you're a director that actually would quite like to go back and work to Warner Brothers, and it sounds like they've got a great plan going forward, but hang on a moment, I could do that. And at any point they could decide they're not going to release my film. What happened with Batgirl is unprecedented. It just doesn't happen. And it's, if a movie is halfway through, if a movie is in development, if a movie is just about to start, then yes, there's always a chance. And every filmmaker knows there's always a chance of it getting pulled. But once something is in the can and edited to the point where it had its first test screening and then gets pulled, that's not the norm in any way.
No.
And I have to say as well, the test scores that were coming back from that, it's only had one test screening, and it was getting numbers in the 60s. Now that's pretty good, actually. It's average to good for a film that has no visual effects done yet, has no score yet, so it's probably just a temp track. Audiences tend to mark those lower anyway because they're less complete. So the idea that it was something to do with the quality is dubious at best. It is a business decision, and I understand that, but it could hurt their prospects going forward.
Just to piggyback off that, when the Batgirl news broke, I reached out to a friend of Batman on Film who's in the business. I said, "What do you think of the Batgirl thing?" And the response was, "Huge brand damaging mistake." And I said, "Doesn't this make filmmakers leery of working with Warner Brothers?" Absolutely. So that's an issue going forward. So I would say you got to covet the Matt Reeves, the James Gunns, the Todd Phillips, and it would be, as Javi said, do what you got to do to get Chris Nolan back, Warner Brothers. Make nice with Clint Eastwood for goodness sakes, but it's just that's the bad. There's two sides, and it's to this whole thing with Batgirl, and there's logical, it makes sense just when you look at it like a baseline, but then on the other hand, it's just PR wise and just the brand.
It's a massive mess. Yeah, complete. My heart breaks for them, I have to say. Just from a filmmaking point of view, my heart absolutely breaks for them. It's got me choked up a couple of times, seeing some of the stuff that they've put out and the support that it's got. Poor Leslie Grace, I honestly think this would have put her at the top of a very long list of potential roles going forward. And it was clear she was having a ball. She was having the time of her life, and the directors were having the time of their life making this film. They were passionate about it. That's what we want. We always want filmmakers to be passionate about what they're working on. It's such a big mistake.
Just think about this. You've canceled a film that has Michael Keaton, J.K. Simmons, and Brendan Fraser in it.
Yep. Crazy.
I mean,
and something else I learned as well. Apparently, J.K. Simmons is retiring. Batgirl would have been his last role.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that makes it puts another spin on it. I have to address something actually.
Sure.
You might not like this. This is going to the Snyder fans out there that think this is somehow a way and a reason to celebrate. The canning of Batgirl is a reason to celebrate. Well, I thought the entire point of the release, the Snyder Cut, was to get a filmmaker's true vision released and seen by the world.
Mm-hmm.
Surely that same thing applies to Batgirl. So where is the support for that? Why the celebrations that Batgirl is being canned in the way it is? And you come to the very quick realization that it's nothing to do with artistic vision. It's to do with a cult mentality that I'm not getting what I want, so I'm going to celebrate when you don't get what you want, and make it as clear as possible. You're not getting the Snyderverse back. That's done. Because this is the scorched earth policy. They're getting rid of everything. So the idea that you thought that Zaslav coming in and restoring the Snyderverse was what was going to happen You couldn't be more wrong. It is made it further away. So let's just follow this through for a moment. If the plan was to restore the Snyderverse, and Batgirl was an obstacle to that, then logically, all you would have to do is replace Michael Keaton with Ben Affleck. Keep the movie exactly the same because it's already got J.K. Simmons in it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that you need to overcome is Michael Keaton. Now, Keaton, I think, worked for a week on that. I've been reliably informed he has 5 scenes in the movie. Ben Affleck could have done that in the same amount of time with very, very little money spent on it. And it would have been part of the Snyderverse. Now, that hasn't happened. So why hasn't that happened? If that was what you thought.
Yes. And you're talking about a man who is, the bottom line is getting that studio in financial order. You're going to go back to a failed era of DC on film.
Yep. It's just not, you can't apply any kind of logic to that argument. It just doesn't work. So it's gone, it's done. And what that means is Henry Cavill is done as Superman. I've been hearing some rumblings that he's actually been having some chats with Marvel about a role. And I think he'll take it. I think that's what I think. Cavill at the moment is probably holding out for Bond to see what happens. I was going to
bring that up. I think at this point, I have heard that Warner Brothers had talks or just, feelers with Cavill. And it seems like it's more like Cavill's like, okay, I'm kind of over this now.
Yeah.
I have a chance to be James Bond. And which Javi, you would like that, sir, wouldn't you?
Well, I would. Bond is a really hard thing to cast. So the fact that he's tested before for Casino Royale and didn't get the part is both good and bad, because there's definitely a precedent of Eon having seen Bond actors test and bring them back later. But at the same time, we're in a weird position with Barbara and Michael, where Barbara seems to be running the show more than back when her father was. And she's being a lot more deliberate about things. And the fact that it's still a ways off as they rethink what this new Bond is going to be makes me think that they're probably not going to go with Cavill. Because if you've already seen what he can do, and you've seen him in other movies, in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., in Mission Impossible, then why are we not charging full steam ahead with Cavill right now and capitalize on the 60th anniversary by announcing him, when instead their narrative is, oh, we're a good 2 to 3 years from figuring out what we want to do. And they've already had this long break because of COVID to get things in motion. And that's just side Bond tangent. Like I think they need to be more proactive in getting things out there, because in this Marvel, DC, shared universe, Star Wars world where there's new content almost every week to watch, and Bond is just, we had a movie in 2012, one in 2015, and one in 2022. The comics are a blip. Novels are haphazardly coming out at best. And a video game is still long on the horizon. Like, you need to get into that conversation, and waiting is not cutting it for at least American audiences.
I would
it's
say
different in the UK.
My only response would be, kind of makes James Bond a little special if he's not oversaturated. It's kind of an event when the movies come out, but to turn back,
it does. And I love that aspect of it. I think, just keeping a Bond movie every 2 to 3 years is great, but not having anything in the pipe to get people excited about hurts the brand as well. It should be special, but it's like Batman, bringing it back to Batman. Like, they haven't really done, Batman TV shows since Adam West, at least in live action, and everything that is Batman related doesn't really have Batman in it, because they save Batman for the big screen. And that makes, going to see the Batman, a big deal. It makes it special. but there's still, other ways to get that fix and still keep it special.
Speaking of the Batman, we're going to wrap this up so I can get y'all out of here in an hour. The Batman. Paul, your take on Reeves and the Batman series future at Warner Brothers?
It's nothing to worry about. I think going on the presentation alone, Zaslav loved the Batman. The Batman and Elvis were used multiple times.
Hey now. That's all I gotta say.
As the recent successes using the model that they'll be using going forward with theatrical and then video on demand after a window of time. So I got the very distinct impression that he's a bit of a fan. Now, you need to keep Matt Reeves happy. There's two ways you do that. You let him have final cut and you let him do what he needs to do. Part of me thinks that there is an element that might stick their fingers in and try and stir the pot somewhat. I have a better idea. Leave him alone. Let him do what he needs to do. If that Batman or that version of Batman needs to be R-rated, make it R-rated. And in the meantime, you set up a DC universe, and let's call it DC Studios or DC Films. They called it DC Films. And have a shared universe Batman that is more family friendly, that you can take your kids to see, and work it that way. The character is robust enough and is proven robust enough to deal with multiple iterations. So use that wisely. I think that was originally the intention with Michael Keaton, to have him popping up, because it differentiates the two Batmen very, very easily. We're never going to mistake Robert Pattinson's Batman for Michael Keaton's Batman because of the huge age difference. We know that isn't part of the continuity. Every member of the audience would be able to figure that out. The problem is if they're planning on doing a shared universe Batman, chances are that's going to be a Batman that's closer to Pattinson's age, and that could spell confusion. Unless you say Matt Reeves' Batman is the R-rated version, the dark, the hard-hitting noir version, and this other Batman is the superhero version.
I would even say
with
that you just, and I think they kicked it around at one time to even say that you've got you got the DC Films connected universe.
Yep.
And then you've got like the Black Label.
I think
films.
That's such a idea.
Joker, the Batman.
Yep.
I don't, whatever you want to do. I'm not limited to just the Batman characters.
Yep.
You want to, if someone comes and does it, I want to pitch as a freaking R-rated Dead Man movie or something. I'm just pulling Dead Man out of the air. Do it.
Regarding Reeves and his vision, though, something we haven't touched on at all, and I did see an article about Warner Brothers Animation and the how with HBO Max they're going to be paring down the animation side of things. We already saw Scoob getting canceled. Was there anything specific said about Matt Reeves' Batman project with Bruce Timm?
No, nothing at all, which is slightly concerning. However, I know initially it was supposed to be in partnership with Cartoon Network as well. Correct. And the one thing that Zaslav made very, very clear is that nothing will be exploited outside of Warner Brothers. Everything that Warner Brothers Pictures makes will be supported by all the other arms of Warner Brothers. So you won't have, for example, in my country, we don't have HBO Max here. So the likes of Pennyworth, you have to pay for on Amazon. And I think Doom Patrol is on Netflix or that kind of situation. With this new synergy that Warner Brothers have, Warner Brothers Discovery, I should say, everything is kept in-house. They will make money off their own product. They will create the product. They will market the product. They will sell the product, all within house. Nothing is going outside of Warner Brothers. No partnership deals. Nothing.
You're not going to get
going to be developed from within.
Like Preachers on AMC. That's not going to happen.
Exactly,
Stuff like that anymore.
Yeah.
So so for example, that would be dead if they can't find a home for it on Warner Brothers. On HBO Max or HBO, then it's dead. And I think there is a distinction between HBO Max and HBO that they really hammered home in the presentation, in that scripted stuff will definitely be covered via HBO, but the unscripted stuff would be on HBO Max. So I don't think you're going to be seeing shows like The Penguin. Certainly any of the small movies that they'd announced, like Black Canary, dead, completely dead. I think Green Lantern is completely dead. Anything like that is gone. I still think there's a good chance that Penguin might happen, simply because HBO is a very logical place to put that. If they can somehow get it on HBO, that would work.
Oh, it's the home of The Sopranos. It's the home of Boardwalk Empire. Wouldn't that fit right there?
So yes. So there, that would be the way it could work.
You got to keep Reeves happy.
Yeah. So I'm not writing off The Penguin just yet.
Yeah.
It won't be on HBO Max, that's for certain.
Yeah.
I got Game of Thrones was mentioned a lot in terms of HBO Max. The House of the Dragon was mentioned a lot. And I got the very distinct impression that if that hadn't already been so far along, that would have been cancelled as well. But because they jumped into that investment, with both feet, and the ball was already rolling, they've had to roll with it. What it's shown is the rewatchability of their figures from the other seasons of Game of Thrones. Those have jumped up because everybody's watching that before they watch this new series. So there is a justification for that there. And that's what kept being said. There has to be a justification, a financial justification for these shows. If there isn't one, it's dead. It's gone. So unless your financials are really rock solid, then you probably don't have a show anymore. And I recently heard that both Titans and Doom Patrol, although it hasn't been announced yet, are both dead.
Yeah.
I suspect that Superman and Lois is safe because it wasn't that airing on CW or something.
CW, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know
which
how
is being sold, so it's not going to be part of CBS or Warner Brothers anymore.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up. Final thoughts and plug whatever you like. Javi, go ahead, sir.
It's been an interesting week. No Batgirl, but yes, Joker 2, and like Paul said, there's lots of conflicting feelings when it comes to artists and business. And I hope that someday we get to see some of these visions come to life, even if they're not connected. I hope that at least Matt Reeves gets to continue doing what he's doing, but I'm also for seeing a shared universe. I know that's not your thing, but I don't want to see it necessarily connected in the way Marvel is, where you have to watch 20 installments to get the current thing. But I'm all for the synergy of having someone show up if it's warranted. And I thought it was very encouraging to hear Mr. Zaslav say that they're not going to be shooting for quarters, like making a quarterly statement movie, but having a good quality movie, that'll stand the test of time. So that at least is encouraging, instead of just cranking something out so we have something, because that leads to, I think, an inferior product. So I'm a lot disappointed but at the same time, I'm also really encouraged for where we go in the future. And as someone who did love Batman v Superman and enjoyed Zack Snyder's Justice League, the discourse around it online has gotten to the point where it's made me like those products even less now. And as much as I would love to see Henry Cavill get a proper sequel, at the same time, I'm just tired of all the nonsense that came with everything, and maybe starting from scratch and getting the DC brand where it needs to be. It should be above Marvel, in my opinion. I enjoy Marvel comics. I enjoy Marvel movies, but DC's where my heart is. And I hope it gets at least equal recognition, if not more, because so much of what Marvel does comes from what DC did first. So I'm optimistic. I'm just really happy we still have the Batman 2 coming. And in terms of where I'm at, Batman on Film, you can read my reviews for Batman the Night and various other side projects coming out. I've got a podcast with my son, Amazing Spider-Man Classics. We should be dropping another episode within a week or two where we look back at the classic issues of Amazing Spider-Man. We're starting with Amazing Fantasy 15 and going for as long as we go. Hopefully within a week or two, my latest article at the James Bond dossier will be up covering James Bond Himeros issue 4. So I am all over the place talking comics and Bond and Batman.
Awesome. What you got, Paul?
Yeah, it's been a week that will be long remembered, I think. Ultimately, I think they're desperately trying to build a foundation that they can really, really build upon in a way that they haven't done before. Beforehand, there was too much of a rush to get to where they need to be to catch up with Marvel. And I think what's going to happen now is we're not going to see anything being put into production over the next year or so, with the exception of Joker, possibly the Batman 2. I think they're going to give themselves some breathing space before they start moving forward with another shared universe and do it right this time. Build it off slowly. You don't have to everything interconnected straight away. Just make it good. That's the bottom line. As for everything else, just everybody stop being a little bit kinder to each other. We're all fans ultimately when it comes to it. And we all love this fandom. So what actually binds us together are these characters that we love. And okay, we might have different ways of thinking about them and how we do them, but honestly, let's concentrate on our love for these characters, because that's why we're all here in the first place. And I have nothing to plug.
Nothing to plug?
Nothing to plug.
Plug that Batman on that Batman Begins set visit you did back in 2004.
Oh, that was wonderful. In fact, I did go and have a look at that a few weeks back, because my son is doing his full media courses at the moment, and he's about to turn 18. And I wanted to show off. So, and I gently reminded him that this was a few weeks before you were born. And I had to go off to London and go on to the Batman Begins set while your mother was left at home being very, very heavily pregnant with you. So it was a great time. I would love nothing more than to be able to do a lot more of that, because when you see firsthand how passionate filmmakers are about the characters and the stories that they're telling, one of the things that I will always remember about that set visit is it felt like a small independent film, not a big budget superhero movie. It was intimate, it was relaxed, everybody had a smile on their face, there was no stress, and everybody was having a ball. And I think that's what we should try and encourage an awful lot more of. And a lot of that comes down to having a great captain at the head of the ship. Because if you have a filmmaker that is steering the ship properly, everybody works their hardest because they see how the main guy is working. and so they don't want to be the weak link in the chain. It was an absolute pleasure to attend that, and let's hope that there's a lot more DC films in the future where we get the opportunity to do it again.
I can't tell you how jealous I was that you went, that I couldn't go. I knew I had to send someone I trusted, which was you, but I did get to go to the Dark Knight set and Dark Knight Rises. So that made up for it eventually. But yeah, that was, those were the golden age. That was the golden age of Batman on film back then.
Well, I think that that golden age is due a revival. So
yes, I will say this: I had so much fun covering the Batman because I was like I was like, I'm done with this after BVS and Justice League. Yeah, it was so fun covering the Batman that it renewed my passion for this website that's going on 25 years. Paul, can you believe that?
Well, what it's brought me out of retirement. So
yeah, I mean,
it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's great to get excited about these characters again. I mean, as far as the Batman goes, it's a film I never thought I'd see. The first time I saw David Fincher's Seven, which never names the city, I always thought this is Gotham, and this is taking part inside Gotham City, and where's Batman? And it feels like Matt Reeves felt the same, because he delivered exactly what I wanted all those years ago. And I can't express enough how lucky we are as Batman fans, because it's not just that we've had movies now dating back. Well, in actual fact, Batman on film, not the website, will be 80 years old next year, because 1943 was the first.
43.
Yeah, was the first serial.
The Batman. Yeah.
The first Batman. Yes. Yeah. And the character has consistently changed public perception on what a comic book movie should be. Batman 89 changed everything. And then the Dark Knight changed everything.
Indeed.
And now the Batman is changing everything. And the Joker changed.
And Joker, I was about to say, don't forget Joker.
Yeah.
Game changers.
It's so incredibly lucky as fans to have those movies in our back catalogue. All I would say is I would encourage everybody out there to own physical media. It's absolutely vital you own physical media, because what's been proved this week is if a movie exists on a hard drive somewhere, it can get deleted. So own your movies. Make sure you have a box somewhere with your physical media, because nobody can touch that.
When I watch the Batman, I put in the Blu-ray, and it even looks it looks better than the streaming. I will one last thing, and we'll get out of here, just because we mentioned Joker and game changers. Speaking of another potential game changer, if someone had told you that we're going to do a sequel to Joker and we're going to make it a musical with Lady Gaga, what would you have thought?
A genius.
Exactly.
Because in actual fact, when I first heard that they were making a sequel to the Joker, I recoiled a little. It did not sit comfortably with me at all.
I'm with you.
And I had conversations with my son actually regarding the Joker, because he's a massive fan of the Joker. And something that I said is, if they make a sequel, they can't do the same thing. We don't want to see a sequel to Arthur Fleck. So therefore, we should have a different story with a different version of the Joker. Because my personal feeling is that whole movie is a lie. It's a lie that the Joker is telling. It's one of his stories.
Yes.
So the next film should be one of his stories.
Yes.
So I was like, well, unless they do that, it's a bad idea. And then it was announced it was a sequel, that it was going to be a musical. And I couldn't stop grinning. And then it was announced to Lady Gaga, and I couldn't stop grinning. And I realized that Todd Phillips is a damn genius
Mm-hmm.
because this is the only way it could be.
This is why I say, Javi, I'm right on board with Paul. I did not want one. I said, because I love that movie. And I said, don't make something that's going to taint, because it's so much of it is people's interpretation. And there's so many, you know? Yeah. And when it came out that it was going to be a musical, and then it was going to be with Lady Gaga, I was like, I'm all in. That's all. I'm instantly all in. And I said, this is why fans, you fan.
Yep.
Creatives, you create.
Yep.
Because I would have never thought of that. And that's
Absolutely.
Another game changer. And it's a Batman.
Yep. It's fantastic.
Batman film for that, you know. He's not in it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Javi, you in for that?
Oh, 100%.
For the musical? Yeah.
I not to make it an echo chamber, I was exactly where you gentlemen were. Like, it's perfect as it is. Don't mess with it. But this combination's like, okay, no, I need to see this. So I'm definitely on board and wholeheartedly excited just to even hear more about it, because there was something really special about that first movie and his approach to it, his influences to it. We got to go downtown Austin to go see the movie at the Alamo Drafthouse in 70mm film. Like, that's, to see a movie on film these days is rare. And that just added a different texture and totally different vibe to the film. So I am 100% on board and curious as to what he's going to do, what his influences are going to be this time. Because what does a musical from Todd Phillips look like even? What's he going to draw from? So yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Thank you guys for coming on. I'll let announcer Rachel do most of the plugs. Just all these shows are part of the Batman Podcast Network. You go to Batman on Film, find the logo, find the link, and there's a plethora of shows. Some are related to Batman, some are just genre sites, whatever, but check them out. And that's all I've got. So for Paul and Javi, I am Bill. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. And I will say, I am optimistic about the future of DC on film. I'm happy that we're going to get the Batman sequel. I hope we get a trilogy, and I'm all down for a shared universe over here that's more family friendly or more, you know what I mean. And then the Black Label stuff. Take some chances with stuff outside of the Batman world with some of these great DC characters, and do it separate. Be different. And that's all I got. So we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the BOF Social Hour, Jett's official vlog and podcast on Batman on Film. Follow Jett on Twitter at Batman on Film. Follow the BOF newsfeed on Twitter at the Batman on Film. For Jett and everyone at BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original, Batman on Film, established in 1998.